Hey, book lovers. My name is Em, and I want to talk about books and cats. Welcome back, book lovers. So I'm super excited because this weekend I am participating in my second Dewey's 24-hour readathon. It's taking place on April 30th, and I will be blogging about it and also posting on the Books and Cats Instagram if you want to follow along, or feel free to join me. Even if you can't do a full 24 hours, which last time I think I managed 20, you can still just choose to dedicate a chunk of your time on Saturday to reading and nothing else. I don't expect that I will do better than my 20 hours last time, but I am hoping that I will make a dent in my to-read shelf, because it is a little insane right now, but at least I have a lot of options to choose from. But for now, let's talk about my latest read. I want to talk about No Exit by Taylor Adams. Now, initially, it was the title of this book that grabbed my attention. I was a theater major, and one of my favorite plays also has this title. It's a little older, having been written in 1944 by Jean-Paul Sartre. It is a French existentialism play in which three people find themselves in a mysterious waiting room, which turns out to be a depiction of the afterlife, where these people are locked together in a room for all of eternity. And it also birthed the famous quote, "Hell is other people." Now, obviously, this is a different No Exit. But in the very beginning, I was wondering if it was a modernized version of the story. Our protagonist, Darby, is a college student on her way home, and she's driving in a massive blizzard. She is forced to stop at a rest area for the night and ends up trapped there with 4 other people. Also, the name of the rest area translates to Big Devil. So you can see why I thought maybe that's where this was going. Now, these people are all carrying their own secrets as well, which also lent to the comparison with the play. But then things get moving and the similarities end. So let's talk about this No Exit. As I said before, Darby is our protagonist, and she's on her way home from college. It's the night before Christmas. She had planned to spend Christmas alone, but her mom has pancreatic cancer, and things have taken a turn. Darby is racing home to say goodbye and to apologize to her mother for being a crappy daughter. Their relationship is rocky at best, and she's hoping to at least get some closure. So her car is climbing through a mountain pass in the middle of this major snowstorm when her windshield wiper snaps off. Her car loses traction, and she's forced to pull off into the closest rest area. There appear to be 3 cars there, buried in the already heavily falling snow, and Darby finds 4 people already inside the building. Ashley, a muscular college guy, Ed and Sandy, who at first appear to be a married couple who keep sniping at each other, and a creepy, pockmarked younger guy named Lars, who rarely speaks and remains near the front of the door, seeming tense and on guard. Early on, Darby goes outside to try and get a signal on her phone. She is unsuccessful, but this is the moment where the night takes a turn. She circles the parking lot before going back inside, hoping to find even one bar, and she notices something weird in the back window of a large gray work van. It looked like a small white hand gripping the bars of a cage. Uh-oh. So, I'm going to go into detail on this story now. If you don't want spoilers and you want to read this book, please skip ahead till after the ad break. I don't want to ruin it for you, and I do highly recommend that you read this. It is a fantastic book. But now I'm going to ruin it. This story is based in surprises. Okay, so if you stuck around, let's get into it. Darby investigates this site because she thinks she must have hallucinated it. She hasn't had a lot of sleep, she's been drinking Red Bull all day. There's no way there can possibly be a child trapped in the back of this van, right? but there is. She is in a small dog kennel and has duct tape covering her mouth and wrapped around her head. It's all tangled up in her hair, which is matted. She's been sick and she's urinated on herself, and she has a wound in one hand from a nail gun. Darby acts without hesitation. She figures out who the van belongs to, Lars, the pimply 19-year-old. She then manages to go back outside and breaks into the van, and she speaks with the girl who is called Jaybird. During this first interaction, Lars comes out to warm up the van to keep the girl alive, and Darby is forced to hide in the back of the van. Once he's gone, Darby leaves the girl with her Swiss Army knife and goes back inside to decide what to do next. She attempts to text 911, but it doesn't go through. No cell service, massive snowstorm. But she has to do something. They're all trapped in this rest area until the morning, and in addition to the massive snowstorm, there's also a jackknife tractor-trailer truck 8 miles down the road. They are occasionally getting information from a scratchy radio, but that's all they have to go on. And it is pretty obvious that nobody is going to get to them until the early morning when the plows come. Now, Darby has learned one other troubling thing. Lars has a gun. Jaybird gave her a lone .45 bullet that she found on the floor of the van and told Darby about the gun. Now, her options are limited. She has Sandy, an older, grumpy lady who seems uninterested in all of them and just keeps her nose in a book. Ed, who is an older man. He's revealed to be an alcoholic, and he's actually Sandy's cousin. She was bringing him to a family Christmas and then probably to rehab. Ashley seems like the best option. He's large and muscular, easygoing, chatty, and Darby decides to trust him. She manages to get a note to him and tells him what she has found. They make a plan to trick Lars and knock him out with a rock and a sock, her only remaining weapon now that she's given her Swiss Army knife to Jaybird. Ashley is nervous, and he also has asthma, which makes him less of an optimal choice, but Darby doesn't have many options. She's going to lead Lars outside, and Ashley is going to follow him and knock him out with the rock. They set their plan into motion, and she locks eyes with Lars as she walks outside. But he doesn't follow her. She feels like she's overplayed her hand. She goes to the van to check on the girl, and the girl mentions the other one. And then she sees them both coming outside. Lars and his older brother Ashley. Uh-oh. She makes it back inside, and they're at a stalemate. They don't want to say anything in front of Sandy and Ed, and Ashley passes a note to her saying that if she says anything, he will kill both of the older duo. So they're at an impasse. For the moment. Darby sneaks into the men's bathroom and manages to vault out of a window. She gets to the van only to find that the back door is now open and Jaybird has gotten free. Her footprints lead out toward the highway in the deepening snow and dark. Ashley and Lars have caught up to her by now, and they use Darby to try to lure the girl back to them. When this doesn't work, they decide they're just going to shoot her, but Darby throws herself down a steep embankment and avoids getting shot. She manages to get back to the rest area building and finds that Jaybird has gone back and she's inside with Sandy and Ed. They barricade the doors, block the windows as best they can, and wait for the brothers' next move. They don't have much to work with, and the brothers have both a gun and a nail gun. Gruesome. During this, Jaybird slips Darby a note telling her not to trust the other two, Sandy and Ed. When Darby is able to ask her why she said this, Jaybird says that she thinks that Sandy looks a lot like her bus driver back in San Diego, but she thinks she must be wrong. She's not. Sandy pepper sprays Darby and lets the brothers inside. She instigated the kidnapping/ransom plot and brought the brothers into it to do the deed. She was meeting up with them to give them a key to a storage unit with supplies, including much-needed medications for Jaybird because she has an adrenal issue and needs steroid shots several times a day. The girl is in bad shape at this point, and she needs immediate medical attention. I feel so bad for her because her only fault in all of this is having rich parents and a greedy bus driver. Anyway, now everything has gone to hell. It turns out that Ashley is real crazy. A true sociopath who was reared every summer by his Uncle Kenny, who supplied women to lonely truck drivers, women he kept locked up in a bomb shelter-type building on his property. Lars has fetal alcohol syndrome and just follows Ashley around. He does whatever his brother wants, even if it involves lighting his beloved pet on fire. It's messed up. Now, unbeknownst to Sandy, Ashley has a plan of his own. He's going to deliver the girl to his uncle and get a cut of her sale price. Uncle Kenny already has buyers that are interested. It is all so disgusting. Human trafficking, especially with children, I cannot wrap my head around how people can do it. It is vile. Anyway, Darby's not going to allow any of this to happen. She is done with Ashley's BS, and she does everything in her power to save Jaybird. She knows morning is coming, and she is determined to save this little girl. Meanwhile, Ashley is convinced that he's a magic man. Nothing sticks to him, everything always works out for him, and it begins to seem like this is going to end the same way. Darby's making it difficult, and he almost loves her for it because she is his equal, or at least as close as he could ever accept. But instead of loving her, he has to kill her. There's a lot of action that I am not able to cover without just covering this book word for word. Again, highly recommend that you read it. But at this point, it's almost morning, and Darby is in really rough shape. But a snowplow has just arrived. She sends Jaybird to it through the window of the bathroom again, and a cop follows soon after the plow. But Ashley is indeed a magic man. Darby has him cornered. She has the gun, and there is one single remaining bullet. But before she can shoot him, the cop shoots her. He had no way of knowing what he was doing, and when he approaches, Ashley shoots the nail gun into his face. He claimed that he had never killed anyone before that day, and he has really racked up the bodies, because he also killed Ed and Sandy. Darby ended up killing Lars. There's a lot of rough death and violence scenes in this book, so if you are squeamish, be warned, because not a lot of things bother me, and there were some moments in this that were tough. Anyway, now comes the only questionable moment in this book for me. Ashley walks away from Darby's body. He doesn't check to see if she's dead. He takes the cop's weapons and goes to the plow truck, where Jaybird is now waiting with the plow driver. He injures the truck driver and is about to kill him when he senses someone standing there. He's expecting the ghost of Darby, I don't know. But it ends up being Jaybird, who now has the gun with the remaining bullet. And she shoots him and kills him. Go, Jaybird. Then she goes to Darby, who is still somehow alive, and she passes on the information about Ashley's Uncle Kenny. She knows that she's dying, and this is the final thing that needs to be taken care of. Lars is gone, Ashley's gone, Jaybird is safe. She just needs that one final piece of information so they can take care of Uncle Kenny. She feels kind of at peace. She has finally finished this whole ordeal, and she's ready to let go. She makes the girl go back to the plow truck and have the driver take her to the scene of that big accident where she can be sent for immediate medical attention because she is on the verge of dying at this point. It's kind of amazing based on what they say about her condition that she lived through this entire night because it was a very busy evening. So at one point during all of the craziness in the night, Darby got a single bar on her phone and received a text from her sister that her mother has died. Darby changed in that moment, and she took her and Jaybird's survival into her own hands. And when she had to do it, she laid down her own life for the girl. She was someone good for a brief moment, as opposed to all the crappy things that she'd done before. And this is when I start crying. And I cry continually through the wrap-up of the book where Jaybird is treated and stabilized, and then when her family goes to Darby's hometown to a cemetery. And I continue crying right up until it is revealed that Darby actually survived. Holy crap, what a book. It was fantastic. Even having listened to this, I would still say read the book. The surprises obviously won't be surprises, but there's a lot of action. The writing is really great. It's a great read. No Exit by Taylor Adams. Highly recommend. So now that I have given you basically a book report and a garbled play-by-play, I am going to take a quick break, and then I have the final chapter of Heart of the Storm for you. This is the end, at least for the first draft. Who knows what will happen once we get back into editing, which is next. Woohoo! That's the tough part. But yeah, be right back. Welcome back, book lovers. This is it, the final chapter of Heart of the Storm. I am actually putting all of the old podcast episodes on YouTube right now. That will be available on May 1st, so please check it out, like, subscribe, watch all the videos, all that good stuff. But as I was going through, I found the episode where I started Heart of the Storm, and it was so long ago. This has been a really interesting experiment, and I'm very happy with the results. So here is what, for now, is the final chapter, chapter 46. Enjoy. Harper's wail slowly died down. Exhaustion settled in her limbs, and she knew it was time. A single tear slipped from her eye and rolled down her stiffening face. Martina fluttered into view. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. "Yes," Harper croaked. Her voice was almost gone. Martina placed her arms around her new friend's trunk and pressed her cheek against the smooth gray bark. With a final shudder, Harper was gone. Martina couldn't let go. They had only just met, but they had a bond. A deep bond. A magical one. And she felt the loss immediately. "Hey." Allie's soft voice broke the spell, and Martina was able to release the trunk and fluttered back to examine the whole tree. "Can you help me with this?" Allie held what looked to be a string of lights. When Martina took one end, she was surprised to find not tiny light bulbs, but miniature stars. She gave Allie a puzzled look, and Allie smiled. "I am a witch, you know. I have a little magic." Martina laughed and shook her head. "Will I ever get used to all this?" Allie laughed. "Eventually. For now, help me decorate the peace tree." Martina wanted to ask, but she waited until they had woven the starlights through Harper's branches. They glowed brightly, cutting through the darkness and smog that had settled over the valley. The air began to clear. From all over the village, bells began to ring. Martina floated down to Allie's side. They admired the beautiful, glowing masterpiece in front of them. Finally, she asked, "Peace tree." Allie stroked a branch that stretched over the edge of the well. "She sacrificed it all. Now the valley can heal." She turned her sad, bright eyes to the sky. Lazalt was lowering himself through the top of the mountain. When he got closer, they could see he was smiling. "The fog is clearing," he said. "Most of the monsters will perish on their own, but the villagers are already forming hunting groups to clean up whatever's left. I will join them soon." "What about Nim?" Allie asked. And as if in answer, the water around the peace tree began to swirl and lower. "1 second," called a voice from the well. Nim was riding the surface of the water as it drained away. She stirred the churning waters and rode them all the way to the bottom of the well. With a flick of her wrists, Nim sent the remaining water away, through the doorways and down into the roots. Lazalt dove down and scooped her up, repeating the same task that had begun their whole journey. "Thank you, Lazalt." Nim said when he placed her on the concrete steps beside Allie. "Let's hope that is the last time you have to carry me anywhere. I hope I never have to fly. I am not made for the air." Allie laughed and opened the door to the crumbling staircase, which looked a little worse for wear now. "How about we take the stairs?" she asked. Nim grinned and nodded. Martina followed them through the door, but Lazault paused. "I'm going to help where I can. They are well organized, but I'd like to help." Allie nodded and suddenly threw her arms around his neck, knocking the wind out of him with the ferocity of her hug. "Come back later, okay?" she whispered. "Yeah, of course I will." He held on a moment longer, and then they parted. He flew off, and Allie turned to find Martina and Nim grinning at her. "Shush," she said as she hastily started down the stairs. "We didn't say anything," Nim said, and Martina giggled. Allie burst back into her store and moved purposely amongst the shelves. Her embarrassment was forgotten. The girls were forgotten. She had one last thing to do. She opened the secret room. The sun had broken through the clouds and was pouring through the open window. Allie took a book from the shelves and opened it. It was hollow and held a small purple pouch. She removed it and emptied the contents into her hand. She held up a mound of sand for the girls to see. It glittered like ground-up diamonds and cast tiny rainbows all over the room. Martina and Nim gasped out loud. Allie walked to the window and with one mighty breath blew the glitter all over the glass. It was covered with tiny prisms, and the sunlight danced as the window absorbed them and then returned to normal. "What was that?" Martina asked. Allie smiled and placed her hand against the glass. It shimmered and warped, and Lazault's face appeared. He noticed them and grinned. He waved. Allie removed her hand, and it faded back to glass. "Just a little magic," she said with a grin. "A gift from Harper." The three girls stood and hovered at the window and watched the sun dancing over the emerging green of the valley. Kevo and Rhea staggered out of the mansion and looked around. They were still soaked and dripping. Water puddled at their feet as they stood on the broken courtyard. "Did it work?" Kevo asked. He shielded his eyes from the sudden bright sunshine. "Yes," Rhea replied with a deep breath of fresh, clean air. Change was in the air, and it smelled delicious. The fog had parted and was rolling away. They moved around the side of the mansion and found Francie lying on the grass. She groaned and rolled over onto her back. Her eyes were dazed and black, but she seemed to see them. She didn't speak, but she sat up. The movement seemed to pain her, but she stretched her arms up toward the sky. Kevo grabbed her arms and lifted her to her feet. Francie staggered along with them to the main drive. Kevo started down toward the valley. When he realized they weren't following, he stopped and turned back to them. "What's up?" He scratched his head. "I'm not going that way," Rhea said evenly. "There is nothing for me there." Kevo thought it over for a moment. "What about her?" he said, gesturing to Francie's slack face. "I'll go with her for a while," she said. Her voice was hoarse and gravelly, and her words startled Kevo. Rhea just looked nervous. "Very well," she sighed after a moment. "You go now. Help save the valley. It's where you belong. We, however, do not." Kevo shrugged and nodded. "Good luck to you," he said. Rhea laughed. "There is no such thing as luck," she said, shaking her head. "But thank you. Be well." Without another word, she turned and moved into the forest to the east. Francie slouched after her, but she turned back to shoot a suspicious look at Kevo. He watched as they disappeared into the shadows under the trees, and then he turned back to the valley. And that is the end of Heart of the Storm, for now anyway. Now I get to tear it apart and edit it into a coherent book. I have really enjoyed this weekly writing project, and I'm excited to dig into this first draft now and see what comes of it. I am going to take a small break from my weekly writing, but I do have ideas for book 2 of this series, and I'm probably just going to use the same weekly writing approach for that one too. Seems to be working for me. So if you enjoyed Heart of the Storm and you want to see what comes next, stay tuned, because book 2 is coming. For now, you can get more of my writing through the books listed on my website and also in weekly episodes of Storytime with M. I shared 2 of my books last season, and right now I am working my way through another one for the beginning of season 2. And like I said, if you missed any past episodes, if you missed the beginning of the story, all of the past episodes are being put on YouTube right now, and they're also available anywhere that you get podcasts. I will be back next week with another chat about books. And since I'm doing this 24-hour readathon this coming weekend, I should have a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for listening, book lovers. And until next time, keep reading.